Welcome viewers to EPG Pathasala lecture series in architecture for MArch students. We are discussing about raster analysis in the previous episode. Let us continue with raster analysis, wherein which we discussed about how exactly raster analysis works with and what are the various advantages of raster analysis, how you can use raster data in simple applications like surface modeling, surfaces development, DEM generation, and so on and so forth. Now, if you have raster data, how are we going to build an expression? Again, that depends on your kind of application. What kind of study you are into will decide what kind of your expression you have to build. We were discussing about one aspect, namely the population and your value of land. If you want to find out those areas wherein which I have a higher population but low value, or I can even say lower values and then lesser population, or higher values and lower population, some combination you can have. So, when I intend to work on this, I have various advantages. For example, I can say something like closure 1. These are some of the facilities which are available, inputs which are there. I can then now I say elevation, the new one is equal to resample the elevation, clean that, and the method to be adopted is cubic convolution. So, this resampling method, when do you use this resampling method? Especially when you are working on, say, satellite data. Invariably, each and every satellite will have its own resolutions, 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters, 1 meter, 0.5 meters. But incidentally, the international bodies will not allow you to have any resolution less than 1 meter. Though they say 50 centimeters is the resolution of the satellite data, they resample the data to 1 meter, that is the 50 centimeter resolution. Satellite data is resampled into 1 meter and then provided to you. In such cases, you use resampling technique. Then which one of the methodology used is a cubic convolution. We use cubic convolution in resampling of satellite data. Well, coming back to your elevation, I may have an elevation values of say 50 meters. I may have an elevation of 90 meters. You have available DEMs provided by various people. Aster is one, SRTM is one. Each of them has got its own resolution, 30 meters, 90 meters. If you want to resample a DEM from say 90 meters to 25 meters or 50 meters to 25 meters, then you can just use this technology and then convert that. So that again, please remember, it's something like interpolation in your vector analysis. You will have to build an expression. That expression will decide what is to be done. So you can see here in this case, resample that elevation named clean 25 meters, and then the method to be adopted is a cubic convolution. So a new elevation, DEM rather, will be generated with a 25 meter or 25 cell size, whatever is that, depending upon the requirement. So this is how you can effectively change the requirement. Map algebra concept. As in the case of your vector data, even in the case of your raster data, the advantage is that you can add, subtract, multiply, whatever you wish to do with your data. In vector, at least you have polygons covering a large area, but here in raster, depending on the cell size, you can have values directly. Each and every cell is a value. That means it's again mathematics. Simple arithmetic equations arithmetic operators can be applied on the data and then analyzed. So you can add the data. So what will we do? We want to compare that similar type of data. You cannot have different type of data. Data type should be the same of values. Example, you see one fruit with another fruit. It should be apple to apple. It cannot be mango to apple. So that example we say that. So you can reclassify entire thing before performing your application, or you can directly use it depending upon the importance. Layer A into layer B divided by layer C. What do you exactly mean by that? Every cell, first cell of layer A, first cell of layer B, first cell of layer C. This in 1 into 1 divided, that value is divided by 1 of this, and the output is stored here. So this is the way you can do. Of course, in the case of your vector data, this will be one zone, this will be one zone, and this will be another zone, something like this. So output will be varying, but here cell values are there, making calculations becomes much easier. So that's the reason why people try to use vector raster analysis in some of the applications where you go for values. An example of good and bad map algebra, where example you can use the addition. So for all the values where you have good areas, that is areas of importance, you can give a value of 1. The rest of them you can give a value of 0. Then what will happen if you add two different layers? If you have two goods, then the value will be 2. If you have one good and one bad, you will be having a value of 1. If you are having both bad values, then you will have a value of 0. So this is how you can reclassify. So when I have a aspect 1 and slope 1, good slope and good aspect, 1 will be the value. If the aspect is good but the slope is wrong, you can convert it into 0. If bad aspect, good slope, again will be 0. If both of them are bad and slope and your aspect, both of them are bad, the value will be 0. So you can see here, you don't get another 1 here. Normally what will happen, negative, negative, positive, positive, it's not possible. That sort of an application is not there. So this sort of analogy is very important when you are working with something like infrastructure mapping. When you intend to go for a bridge construction, when you intend to develop a road in Ghat section, that section where you have lot of variation in elevation in a very short region, short distance rather. So in such cases, this sort of analysis will be very useful. Reclassification a raster image. So whenever we get a situation, we will have to categorize the values. So we want to rearrange the values. We want to calculate from 0 to 50 as the one of the range, categories like 0 to 20 in near, 20 to 30 as medium, and 30 to 50 as far. So take the values, the total are up to 50, 0 to 50, you can reclassify. It no compulsion that it should be only 0 to 20, good. It could be anything. Far off distance could be 40 to 50, and then the moderate distance will be 10 to 30, 10 to 40, and the nearest may be 0 to 10. So there is no interval values fixed. You can decide based on the application. So you can reclassify a raster image. Again, similar to your vector data, the best part here is that once you run an application wherein which you are going to add n number of layers, and most importantly, I am getting numbers. As long as you get numbers, as and when you get numbers, the advantage is that you can bring in statistics into the study. There, individual discrimination cannot be accepted or need not be rather. You can use a simple statistical analysis to come out with a proper output. So when I use the same technique, I get the statistical details. What? Again, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, and then you get the sigma value, that is standard deviation, the mean value you get, Of course, count may or may not be required in all the studies. So, statistical details you get it, and what we tend to do is that distribution. When you use this, you can see there is a range here from here to here. Many times the ranges will not be distributed over the entire distance. So, you may have to reclassify the value. So, like an image processing technique, where what we do is that we use the analogy of reclassification by stretching them. That is, the values are all concentrated between 0 to 80, but I have a range of 0 to 255 levels. So, I can stretch the values, assign 0 to 0, 80 to 255. Then what will happen? The values will get stretched and becomes much brighter. So, in contrast enhancement, raster analysis, we use this analogy. So, reclassification is one method wherein which depending upon the statistical details, depending upon the input what we get, we try to analyze. I think you just understand the importance of that. So, raster analysis reclassification plays an important role now. Calculator, as we have seen in the previous case, calculating the data, making manipulations rather. Many times we may have to manipulate the data. We will see the example, a live example later. Now, what kind of manipulations you would like to make? Giving a criteria, giving the weightages, ranks and the weightages, you ask the system to make changes. You can have a discrimination, you can have your own values, you can have your own, but the system will take care of the analysis, it will perform on its own. So, a raster calculator will be very, very useful in, it is an utility for performing a wide variety of your analysis, especially in geo related task. When you want to use this or when you use this, one advantage is that you get a new raster image and that meet the criteria or that meet the requirement what of yours, you can conveniently do it. Again, the advantage here is that raster data will have cell values, each and every cell will have a value. Capabilities of your raster data analysis, what kind of analysis one can do. Using a raster calculator, you can just try to get the high values and the low values of this. This is the mountain or the hill rather, and you want to analyze this particular values, just to reclassify the entire thing according to the requirement by high values to low values. So, this is your high value and green is your low value. So, you get this. So, now you can understand immediately and what kind of changes you want to do. This particular analysis, simple analysis, I will tell you an example rather. You must have heard about hilly terrains, you must have heard about landslides. A landslide will occur because of various reasons, let us not go into the details. So, you know an occurrence of landslide, if it takes place in a given terrain, what is that human being can do? You need a DEM, digital elevation model of that entire area. If you know the elevation variations of that area, it becomes much easier for you to take a action. For example, you want to construct a retaining wall. Where do you want to construct a retaining wall? Which part of the hill you should construct so that there will not be any further landslides in that area. So, in such cases, this is very important. For example, you can also think about your structures which will be used for storing water. For information, the largest rainfall receiving areas in the world are thirsty, they do not have water. Why is it so? Because you do not have any system in place to store the water. Thinking that water will be available throughout the year, Cherrapunji is one example. Whenever there is no rain in Cherrapunji, people find it so difficult for even drinking a cup of water. So, that is the biggest disadvantage. In such cases, it is inevitable that one has to plan for something like, say, your structures which will retain the water. A DEM with such analysis will be really useful, and then you can decide which are the places where you can store the water, or as I said, which are the places where you can construct a retaining wall, or removal of soil, soil erosion, construction of a check dam in a given terrain. If I just construct a check dam, that will arrest both water as well as the removal of the topsoil. So, this are some of the applications. Now, let us see a live example of what exactly raster analysis can do from satellite data. It may not be a directly pertinent one, but just understand the concept part of it. Multi-criteria analysis for crop suitability. I want to analyze a particular given land and calculate or input various parameters and calculate the capability of the land, the suitability of the land. Once I know what is the capability, then I can think of that particular land, what is it suitable for? Land suitability, land capability study. What is that we do is that a simple methodology is adopted here. Say, let us see that. Crop suitability, you can use the multi-criteria analysis and something like this: land capability, land suitability, and then crop suitability. Land capability LC, wherein which you give these three parameters: soil, geomorphology, and slope. Land suitability, land capability plus land use, land cover, a map or input, this one put. Crop suitability is LS plus groundwater and surface water. See how beautifully it has been devised. Depending upon the soil characteristics, we can say, and the geomorphology and the slope, we can say what is the capability of the land: good, bad, poor, extremely poor, or extremely good. If I know the suitability, by the land use of the surrounding area, I decide the suitability. But that is not sufficient, because I need most important for a crop suitability, I need water. So, I need the land suitability plus the groundwater or surface water or plus surface water. When you want to develop a beautiful picturesque, say something like a golf course, as an architect, you may be interested in doing that. A very large area, let me say. You should not shy away from that, saying that, oh, it is not my context, I cannot do that. No, it is not difficult. The simple analogy, if you just follow with little inputs from various disciplines, you can effectively go for landscaping the entire area, beautiful landscaping of that. Because you should know which type of grass is suitable for that area, for which you definitely, to maintain that, you require water. To sustain that, you require a good soil. You understand what I am trying to say? So, that is the way in which you design. So, let us see this example in detail. One area, Bankura, some place, do not worry, it is in West Bengal, a district, where in which soils were selected as one of the inputs. So, if I know the soil characteristic, if I know what exactly the soil present there, I can decide what kind of plants are possibly grown there, or what is the previous history, what type of soil. Let us not worry or discuss about the type of soil. Let us see effectively what kind of history it has got. What kind of soil is there? Various types are there, you can use them, inceptive soil, all these things. So, you can understand the type of soil present there and then go ahead with the decision making. You see here, what is that we have given? We have just given the weightages for various soils. Again, please do not brood about this, this is the concept part of it. Various soils are there, each of them are given a weightage here. Similarly, talk about the geomorphological characteristics. Geomorphology is nothing but your landscape rather, or landform we call it as right word. So, what kind of landform is present, to what extent that particular landform can take or accrue water. So, that again depends on the soil characteristics. So, the top part of your landform is a soil followed by the next subsequent features as your geomorphological landforms. So, these two parameters will play an important role. So, what I am going to do is that I am going to give a weightage for that also. When I give a weightage for that, what kind of geomorphological parameter, what is the weightage here? Apart from that, the next aspect is your slope. So, when I have a 0 slope, the weightage will be just 1. I do not have to worry because I do not give much weightage. But if it is greater than 15, I just give 2. 15 and above, I give a weightage of 3. Now, here an important aspect, I may also object to the weightages, but still the more important thing is that many a times people think that just because we have water, we have to store it. No, that is not required. When do you want to store the water? When you have water tables which are at a lower level. Only then you will have to think of storing the water. You cannot simply store the water because you have water. Just because rain is there, you cannot store the water. Let me take Chennai for example. 20 feet or 25 feet was the level of water for almost 8 or 9 years before the last flood. The last flood has risen the water and the water levels are almost ground level in many areas, not in all areas. Subsequently, the usage of water has lowered the water level, and especially in some areas, low lying areas, the water levels were about 8 or 10 feet for some time during April, May. All of a sudden during June, we had heavy rains. At least rains were relatively higher, not heavy literally, and the water level has started rising. Now, about 15-20 years ago, every individual house they were asked to harvest the rainwater. So, this rainwater harvesting has started increasing the water level. Now, what I am supposed to do now? I am going to have real monsoon. So, if the monsoon is going to increase, if the monsoon is going to be very high this year, the water levels are already there. So, last year 3 cyclones were there. The first cyclone helped us to increase the water level. Second cyclone, somehow they were able to manage and the water levels are all there in almost all the water bodies in the wells. The third cyclone we could not take because there is no space for the water to be stored. That was the reason the entire city was flooded on 1st December 2015. And now also, what is that we are going to do? How is that we are going to handle this? It may not be directly pertinent to you, but what I would like to say is that stormwater drainage, because the water levels are already high. So, one big rain will bring the water level to surface level this time, and one more rain, because Chennai city or most of the coastal areas are dependent on only one thing during rains, that is nothing but cyclones. You do not have a monsoon here, you do not have a fixed time for rains, you have only cyclones. Only a cyclone can save these coastal regions. Well, so coming back to that, the first rain probably water levels may come back to normal, then second and third rain, probably second rain may be intermediate, the third rain if you have one more cyclone, there will be one more major flood in Chennai city. So, what is required is that you require a good planning. Why I am telling you all these things, important thing is that a smart city, an Amrit city which is all going to take place, huge differences going to take place in the city of India. So, if that is the case, how is that I am going to plan? I am going to use this technology. In fact, we are going to use this effectively, this technology in understanding the slope aspects. So, that is the reason I just brought all these points to your notice. Now, slope is there, I just give the weightage and ranks for that. Land use, land cover. What is the land use in a given area? What is the land cover in a given area? There is not much of a difference. Land use, we say exact use that particular land is put to. Land cover, what is the coverage of land. For example, if I say land cover, water, that is land cover. Land use, what kind of use it is? Is it a river? Is it a channel, general canal? Is it a tank? Is it a reservoir? You understand that? So, land use and land cover, they are all hand in glove, but land cover is that which is a common word, water, forest, your vegetation. When I say vegetation, what is the land use then? Agriculture, forestry, plantation. See, this is how they work on that. Anyhow, coming back to that. So, this is how you decide. Based on that, based on the importance in this application, we go for the, again the weightages are given here. Similarly, we think about groundwater and the surface water, work on the various aspects and parameters, land use, land cover, surface water, groundwater and other things, and decide the criteria. So, this is what is called as multi-criteria ranking and analysis. In the first case, we just gave weightages and ranks, and then there was only criteria was there, but not very much. So, now it is multi-criteria. Analysis is done based on different criteria. You can see this land capability, how do you work? Slope, geomorphology, soil, ranking, and you calculate. Land suitability, land cover, land capability with land use, land cover, and the ranking. Crop suitability, your LS, that is land suitability plus surface water plus groundwater and ranking. So, 3 different phases. Whereas in vector we just understood only just taking into rank some 8 or 9 layers, but it is not like this is multiple criteria, that is the output of 3 or 4 layers will become input of the next set of layers. So, that is the beauty here. So, we work on 3 layers, get an output that will become one of the inputs of the with the next layer, then again take the output of this and go to further 2 more layers. So, you may have only 6 layers or 7 layers, but you just work, it is a kind of a calculation you make. Of course, this also can be done in vector analysis, but it becomes much easier in raster analysis because this is dealing with numbers, and this is your land suitability. So, when you have the land suitability, you have seen the first 3 parameters. You create one layer, land suitability, and you say whether it is suitable or not. A criteria is, a decision is taken, how far it is suitable. Once land is suitable for a particular purpose, what kind of use you can go with, you can work with, like is it suitable for rice, is it suitable for sugarcane, is it suitable for wheat? What kind of analysis, what kind of study? Rice suitability map, that is what I was telling you, the third one, the third part will be your land suitability actual application. So, here we are just talking about your rice suitability. These are the areas which are suitable, not suitable, some of the areas may not be directly pertinent to you. So, this may not be there, and these are the hilly terrains, some of them are really useful and things like that. So, you just try to do that. You also have potato suitability, lands which are useful for potato, because rice requires more water when compared to potato, sugarcane requires much more water when compared to potato and rice. So, again the factor, the parameter of water availability, just because you have land, just because you have good soil, it is not going to help you in any way. You require lot of water. If no water is there, good soil is there, what is that one supposed to do? We will go for dry crop. So, depending upon the usage, depending upon the application, depending upon the utility, which kind of soil is suitable for which kind of crop can all be calculated. It has all been calculated for this particular study. So, what is that I wish to say is that in your context, if you are going to work on aspects like I am going to develop a major town or a major city. Here, first and the foremost is that infrastructure facilities. Are we having infrastructure facilities to the right extent? So, we say that study the infrastructure facilities which are existing in that area. Then decide what has to be done in that region. If it's a small area, then you can use simple technology. You need not bother about GIS. My role here is to make you understand the role of GIS in architecture planning, urban planning, new development, existing city development. For example, you want to improve the existing drainage system in a given area. Is it possible for you to measure and study everything within a short period of a larger area? It's not possible. You have to use GIS effectively clubbed with remote sensing technology. Definitely, surveying is one of the alternatives, but that will take a long time. To get an idea, for example, you can ignore a lot of areas within a given terrain. For example, you talk about built up land. You cannot do anything with a built up land. You cannot remove buildings. Nobody will allow you to do that. So, you are left out with what? I am left out with only the roads network. So, go for a road network map. Get the entire area pertaining to the roads. You know the width of the road. You know the length of the road. You can physically measure using this in GIS. You know what type of road it is made up of. You just map all the utilities present in that map directly, already existing utilities. And you know the location of various distribution and transmission lines and the control valves in the area. All these things will be present. So, once I have these details already existing in my map, it becomes much easy for me to finalize the improvements to be given, because I am not going to do anything beyond that. So, what I am going to do is that I am going to work on the existing data, think what best I can do for my analysis, and I will decide on that. So, this is the way in which you can use effectively GIS. So, I hope I have just given you some important inputs, and let us see other details in the next session. Thank you.